Hi, I'm Zach Zinn. Welcome to Gekisai Bagwork. What this video is essentially a series of bagwork drills for Gekisai kata. A little bit of an intro to me. I've been doing karate for 30 years and some change. A lot of sport karate when I was younger, and as I've gotten older, I gravitated towards the traditional and applied sides of karate. I've also cross-trained in judo and jiu-jitsu for a fairly extensive period of time, and recently I've cross-trained in boxing, which is what inspired me to make this series of videos. So a little bit of background. I kind of feel like I didn't have a great grasp of how to actually use a heavy bag until going to the boxing gym. And I think that that's probably true in a good portion of the karate world. It's simply true that, heavy bag training wasn't a large part of early karate. And I think in a lot of ways the karate world has not really caught up. So, and that's not to put anybody down. I found it to be true in my experience. Maybe it's not true in your experience and I'm wrong. But that's my opinion, and that's part of what inspired me to try to put this series of videos together. So as far as the scope here, I'm not trying to teach you boxing. I'm not qualified to do that in any way. What I'm going to show you is the very minimum footwork drills that I learned in boxing that I think are a prerequisite for basic bag work, and we're going to kind of integrate them in a more karate manner, just as a way to get us started on bag work before we get into the Gekisai drills. So again, I'm not trying to teach anybody combat sport, but on that subject, if you've already done combat sport, if you've already done boxing, kickboxing, something like that, this first video may actually be pretty basic to you. It's just going to be, some basic footwork and pivoting drills integrated with the upper and lower body. So that's going to be the scope of this first video. The other thing I want you to keep in mind here, particularly because this is an application video on heavy bags, is just generally the subject of bonkai. We don't want to get too complex with bonkai. What we're looking for in this video is flinch reaction, violence of action. That's the two things we're trying to hone in and work on with our bag work. So don't get into a zone where you're like, oh, well, what if he grabs me here? What if? We're not trying to go to that part of our brain for this. This is going to be just like brutality on a heavy bag. That's what we're trying to go for. So don't get too complex, okay? Equipment needed. You're going to need to learn to wrap your hands. There's YouTube videos for that, and you're going to need gloves. So probably fingerless gloves are best because there will be a few applications where we grab things, but a lot of the video you'll be able to do in boxing style training gloves too. I grew up again hitting a heavy bag barehanded, and I actually think there's a lot of value to that. I'm fairly competent at hitting a heavy bag barehanded, but you can't do the same stuff barehanded that you can when you wrap your hands and wear gloves. If you try barehanded all the time, you're always going to be somewhat sterile in how you approach things because you can't just kind of let loose in the same way. So you will need hand wraps and bag gloves. You can certainly attempt it without them. I wouldn't recommend it because when you really get going on a heavy bag, you want that protection for your hands. Okay. So again, I think that covers all the background information. The scope of this first video, when we finish talking here, is some basic footwork drills, basic coordination drills on moving around and pivoting, and then I'm going to give you just a basic heavy bag drill to kind of ease your way into more dynamic heavy bag work with moving and hitting before we introduce the actual Gekisai applications in the following videos. All right, so I will see you soon, and thank you very much. So we're going to cover the preliminary footwork drills that we're going to need for the bag work, okay? So the first thing we're going to do is cross footwork. So you want to adopt a stance somewhat similar to like a Zenkutsudachi in its dimensions, but it's going to feel a little bit different from a traditional Zenkutsudachi. The best way I can explain it is when you do a traditional Zenkutsudachi and you're learning to move in stance, when you initiate your move, you put your weight into this front leg and that back one comes up. So That's more like the stance that we're going to adopt for most of this. We're going to be a little bit lighter on our feet than you typically are, and your weight is going to be a little bit forward into the balls of your feet, okay? So we're going to start with just the simple movement first, and then I'll kind of build layers as we go, and you figure out what level you're comfortable practicing this at, and that's what you do, okay? So the movement works like this. Whatever direction I'm moving, that's the foot that moves first. The second foot simply follows. So if I'm going to move forward, this foot moves, the back one follows. If I'm going to move left, if I'm going to move right, back, forward, left, right. Okay? So very simple. This may be too simple for you and you want to move on. So then we'll add a jab to it. And again, I'm going to add a jab in like the most structured way possible. I'm going to break it into two pieces. So it would be 1, 2 on the recovery. 1, 2. 1, 2. 1, 2. Okay? So there's your cross footwork with a jab. If we were going to do it one count, it would just be 1, 1, 1, 1. All right? As far as where you hold your hands, being that we're not talking about boxing here and we're talking about karate, which, you know, applied karate tends to be oriented more towards self-defense, we're not going to try to put our hands by our head or anything like that. Just have your hands up in front of you where you can put them out to do things, and that's our goal for hand movement. Okay, so again, cross footwork with a jab. 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever direction you want to go in. Okay. The next thing to do would be to add on the second hand, and again, if I broke that into two pieces, it would be 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. While I'm doing this, I'm not really worried about karate style kime like we would do when we practice kata or kihon. I'm not going to snap something out there and kind of be still or anything. I just want to coordinate my hands and feet to begin with. So again, if I wanted to do this more uninterrupted, it would be 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, etc. Okay? Simple, just 4 directional movement. 1, 2 punch. You can add on other techniques to this. You know, you go 1, 2, 3. Whatever you want to do is you know, you can get creative with this if you want. You can do elbows, you can throw in kicks, anything you'd like to do, okay? Next will be pivoting and shuffling footwork. Pivoting footwork. Pretty much what it sounds like. We do these kind of motions a lot in kata and stuff, but we don't necessarily isolate them or think about them. So 2 ways I can pivot from my stance that we talked about earlier. I can open the door, and I'm going to do this with a step initially. So I step, open the door, and I can close the door. Step, close the door. Okay? And I can also do those without a step, right? 1, 2. Relatively simple. Probably pretty natural if you've done karate for a while. Next thing we'll do is shuffling. You know, the main purpose of this is just so that you can maneuver around the bag and kind of have some continuity to your movement when you do bag work. The way shuffling works is I pretty much move 1 foot and I shuffle. Okay? Simple, right? You can also combine these 2 movements, the shuffling and the pivoting. So I'll shuffle a couple times, pivot, throw a couple punches. Back, shuffle, pivot, throw a couple punches. Okay? And once you get comfortable with this stuff, you can kind of start improvising. So I can do my stepping motions, I can pivot, punch, throw in different techniques. Okay, so that's the idea here, is develop the ability to move around, throw techniques, so that when I do my bag work, I'm not just standing in front of the bag going dunk, 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 reset, dunk, 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 reset. I want to be moving, throwing techniques the entire time. Okay, so next portion will be actual bag work. So what we're doing now is actual bag work. I want to say before I get started that the kind of bag I have here, the setup is not ideal. In my experience, the best way to hang a bag for the kind of stuff we're going to do throughout this series of videos is a bag mounted to the ceiling with a somewhat long chain, mainly because you want that movement in the bag. You don't want your bag to be static. You want your bag to move around because that, of course, is a better simulation of an actual opponent. Regardless of what art you do, or you train for self-defense, whatever, whoever you're fighting is going to be moving. So you want a bag that has more mobility than mine does, but I'm working with what I have here. Maybe in later videos I will have mounted mine to the ceiling. So the first drill that we're going to do here, I would recommend if you're new to bag work and you don't have any sort of the conditioning from it yet or anything, that you start off with something like 30 seconds to a minute and not more. And what our drill is going to be is it's going to be this sort of cross and pivoting type of footwork. We're going to use that sort of thing for lateral motion as we go back and forth in front of the bag, just throwing a 1-2. So I'll do like 20 seconds just to demo what it looks like with me doing it. And then you can go for a minute or whatever you want. Okay? So I'll just start off here. Okay, so next part is we're going to do the same drill. And again, if you're new, 20 to 30 30 seconds to a minute is about what you should be aiming for in terms of rounds for this. And that will probably be enough for you. So the next part of this drill of just lateral movement and throwing a 1-2 is, the way I was doing it before is kind of rote. And now I'm going to kind of add some dimension to it, adjust my timing a little bit, if only to kind of refine my ability to move and punch in different ways. So I'm going to kind of switch up my stance, move around a little more, and utilize a little more movement with that 1-2 punch. Okay. So a note here, when your bag begins swinging, don't do this. Don't stop it and start hitting it again. Move around it depending on the direction it's moving in. Just like a person, if a bag is coming at me in this direction, I pivot, move out of the way and hit it. I'm not going to try to stop it to make things easier for myself. Part of the point of bag work is that we're simulating a real person. Okay? So there's a basic idea, doing it with a little more dynamics. Final drill I'm going to show you here, a conditioning drill. The reason I'm putting it at the end of this first video is in case you feel like something is still just a little bit wrong with your moving and punching. It's like you're doing it, you don't feel comfortable, you feel off balance, something like that, unable to right your position after you move. This next drill I'm going to show you is sort of a back to basics thing. When I first learned it, I was kind of like, why are we doing this? And I assumed it was just a conditioning thing, but it's not. It also teaches just basic coordination of your hands and feet. This drill, again, maybe 30 seconds to a minute. It's pretty tiring. When I first started in boxing, he would have us do it for a minute and kind of raise that up over time. And what it will do is give you the physical conditioning to do basic bag work. And again, it will help you with coordination of your hands and feet. So this is basically, I'm just going to stand in front of the bag. These don't have to be hard or fast punches in particular, but I'm going to start just constantly punching. And as I do, I keep my feet moving. Very simple development drill, not much to it, but if you're struggling with the basic hand and foot coordination, that will help. So again, this video is prerequisites for the kind of stuff we're going to work when we get to the Gekisai Bagwork material. Okay, so hopefully you enjoyed this. Thank you very much. Little addendum before we move on to the actual Gekisai bag work in the following videos. What you want by the end of this video, or just by the time you move on to the other videos, is you want to be able to be moving and active for at least like 1 to 2 minutes in your bag work. And that means that when you do bag work, you're not doing this. You're not going 1, 2, 3. What am I doing now? Oh, 1, 2, 3. You want to have some dynamics to your bag work so that you're not just repeating the same kind of loop over and over again, and you're not just standing in one place. So once you can move around and feel that you're comfortable hitting, being fully active with the bag, you're ready to move on. If you don't feel like that yet, I would recommend that you just simply practice moving around the bag, throwing your straight punches in different ways, and practicing this footwork until you can do a minute or two without that sort of start-stop 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 uppercut type robotic movement. What you really want here is you're figuring out the way you will actually move while you do this stuff. And a lot of times I think we approach heavy bag and karate as like, I'm just going to do these 3 combinations and, really hard. Karate people always love to feel, years of Makuara training, you want to feel what you're doing. You don't need to feel what you're doing all the time. You just need to have that general activity and like mental focus so that you're going for 1 or 2 minutes. You're not just repeating a loop, you are going like you would as close as you can get to a real situation. Okay? Thank you.